We are on the morning break in the questioning of HN53, the former detective inspector of the Special Demonstration Squad from 1998 until 2005. He was described beforehand as the human filing cabinet. He started off describing the unit as full of integrity. He had to correct himself and say that numerically that was not the case when all the officers who he was managing were listed who committed serious sexual abuse. He was taken to the Tradecraft Manual. He claimed that it was not the official document that we all know it to be. I was looking through some of the scenarios that of the interview questions, which he said he contributed to formulating, all of which pointed to the idea that sexual abuse was not taken as seriously as it should have been. I'm joined by Dave Morris, who's been following the evidence. What did you make of what you've heard?
Well, actually, I thought it was mind-boggling.
Quite.
This is the management now, and they're completely cornered. And he started off saying what he was struck by when he was, first of all, he had been an undercover officer in the 1980s.
Yes.
And
we don't know where.
No, we don't know where. And then Bob Lambert just, met him in a park and said, "Oh, how would you like to be a manager?" Yes. Okay.
At my old job.
And that was it. That was
Literally.
it, basically. He was in.
He talked about the family of special branch.
Oh, yeah. So he's in, and then he said he was struck. The thing that was different from the 80s was the high ability and integrity of the officers.
More polished and professional.
Yes. So that was his starting point. Then it was pointed out that virtually all of the officers were not only, conducting unacceptable sexual abusive relationships with women,
but also criminality.
Well, and all the other things that hasn't been mentioned yet, but also, according to him, they were all lying.
Yes.
They were all lying to, deceive the management. And then it goes to the training that the new officers get. First of all, these sexual relationships are in all the scenarios they're asked about before they're accepted, so they're completely aware that this is a potential issue. Secondly, on the second day of their training, once they're accepted, they're all told to read the Tradecraft
Manual.
Study the Tradecraft Manual, which, amongst other things, basically completely legitimizes sexual relationships with members of the public.
I mean, just to say that the second day is literally one strategy meeting first thing in the morning, another item which is redacted, and then the rest of the day to study the Tradecraft Manual.
Yes. So he accepted that section of this manual, which all officers are told to read and study on the second day of their training, basically encourages sexual relationships with members of the public.
It should also be noted.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
it should be noted that according to him, there was no other mention of sexual relationships apart from what was in the scenarios, which was approaches by activists to undercover officers, and what's in the Tradecraft Manual. That was it. So that was all the talk.
But he basically then completely reverses his initial point, which is that all the officers were high ability and integrity. That's what struck him most about when he came back as a manager. They were all lying to the management about their misconduct. Now, what we know is actually, of course, they all knew, but they had a policy, which none of them were prepared to admit, of don't ask, don't tell.
At best. I mean, it might be worse.
At best. I mean, basically, all the unit cared about was getting intelligence and snooping and undermining, on progressive campaigning organisations. And as long as they carried on doing that, they couldn't give a shit how they got that information. And obviously, if they had sexual relationships with members of the public, they got better quality information because they were accepted by their target groups. It was useful for their cover and for getting information. So actually, all the management are completely complicit, encouraging such relationships, and it's there in black and white in the manual.
Yeah, very much. He was read the Met Commissioner's apology. He had to accept it. The first half, then the second bit where it talks about
the manager's
faults. Yeah,
yes,
he didn't agree with that bit. He said
no,
well,
it was the undercover officers. The thing is, and actually some of the undercover officers, when they're given evidence, have complained about being left, what's the word, thrown under a bus by the management. Of course, they're all blaming each other. None of them go in the witness box and say, oh, it's my fault. It's everybody else's fault.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it's all of theirs fault, basically.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately the commissioner of the police and anyone that signed off on this unit.
I mean, it was quite amazing that he went on quite a long sort of explanation of how the management couldn't possibly be held responsible for the actions of the undercover officers, because there was simply no way they would have been able to stop such deceptive people from lying to them and behaving so badly. These are the same men that he said had so much integrity only a few moments earlier.
Yes,
it was. I mean, just ridiculous contradictory evidence.
It was shocking, but again, it completely. What's the word, deals with this issue, but hopefully when we get people higher up the train, they'll be blaming the lower, the management lower down. Everyone's blaming each other, and the whole barrel is rotten from top to bottom.
Unlike myself, you're in a different room for I'm in the normal public gallery, which I get to have the modulated voice. You get to hear the real voice. I would say it is very topical of the undercover policing inquiry to have the voice of what sounds like Count Binface giving evidence. I mean, it is very distracting. If you are following on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. It's a ridiculous sound. I mean, exactly like Count Binface.
I just want to flag out that HN53, this witness, is very important. He was a senior manager
for a long time,
for a very long time, in some of the most disgusting, despicable activities by this unit. And I particularly am looking forward to him dealing with how they covered up Helen Steele's search for her ex-partner, John Dines. They covered up, they lied, they spent huge amounts of taxpayers' money to make sure she couldn't find him, when all she was concerned about was his welfare, because he had been her ex-partner that disappeared. That's to come.
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons that I'm here today, to make sure that and next week when he comes back next week. Yeah.
Interestingly, when he was asked about the roles that he had as detective inspector and shown a list of them, he said, "Oh yes, this is my roles at the beginning. As time went on, I was much more focused on a select group of issues," and he named Operation Muscat as one of the main ones.
Yeah, Operation Muscat took up a huge amount of his time, more and more. Because,
I mean, so basically,
they were obsessed, basically. With stopping Helen Steele, finding John Dines and exposing the unit, not just exposing it, for its sexual abuse, but also during the McLibel trial, which would have meant that John Dines was highly relevant to the campaign against McDonald's, and if he'd been exposed during that case, which I was the other defendant in, with Helen, it would have been a global publicity and massive embarrassment to the Metropolitan Police. So they pulled out all the stops, but they still couldn't stop Helen in the end. But I won't put out a spoiler, but she tracks him down in the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, there's a public inquiry at the end of it. What a spoiler. But according to HN53, his 4 areas of responsibility which dominated his time was officer welfare, operational finances, Operation Muscat, and the fallout from the True Spies documentary, and that is what he was spending the majority of his time doing during the latter parts of his time in role, according to him,
and being paid a large amount to do
of course.
And we'll see later about Operation Muscat. It's mind-boggling as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, I better go back.
Yeah, it's only a short break. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody who's liking and sharing these videos. It really makes a difference to how well they're